I'm Tim Maudlin at the Philosophy Department at New York University and the director of the John Bell Institute for the Foundations of Physics. I'm here in our department, and as you can see, nobody else is. We are completely shut down, and we're going to be shut down for the rest of the semester. And I just thought it might be a good opportunity to give a little presentation about the mathematics of pandemics for people who don't like math. The concepts here are not very difficult, they're easy to understand, they're easy to explain, but they're really quite striking. Even for people who work with mathematics all the time, when you stop and think about what the numbers mean, it's really quite remarkable. So what we have here is a first scenario where we've instituted a pretty good social distancing regime, and people are doing a pretty good job at it. Not entirely perfect, nothing's going to be perfect, but they're managing to stay pretty far apart and not go out that much. We're going to imagine, for simplification, that someone who has the virus is only contagious for a single day. And they may not even know that they have the virus, so they may be out and about a bit, and therefore pass it on to someone else. So we have our first victim here. She has the virus, she's out, and she's trying to be careful, but nonetheless, in the course of her day of contagion, she manages to pass it on to one person. So at day 1, she's been infected. At day 2, here's the one person that she passed it on to. He also goes out, has some contact, passes it on to one person. At day 3, we have another victim. And now we just think about what's going to happen over the course of 30 days. This is very simple. On the 30th day, we have a new victim, and we can easily show what the results are going to be after 30 days. We have 30 infected people. If the fatality rate is around 1%, maybe nobody dies, maybe one unlucky person here has actually died from the disease. That obviously seems like a sad but not horrific outcome. And you might wonder, why are we going through all this trouble of the social distancing? Well, the way to understand that is to think about what happens if we don't do even quite so good a job. So let's look at a second scenario. We're now going to imagine that our social distancing is not so good. It's not terrible. People are still keeping a bit of a distance, but they're going out more. They're not keeping quite as far apart. And in the course of her one day of contagion now, our first victim passes it on to 2 people. Obviously, that's worse. And the first thing that comes to your mind is, gee, that's twice as bad. Things are going to be worse. Of course, at day 3, each of those 2 people pass it on now to 2 more people. And maybe it's becoming obvious that it's even somewhat worse than twice as bad. And we just ask ourselves, after 30 days, what will be the result? And this is not an answer that anybody could just pull out of their head or have a good sense of. You really have to go plug it into your calculator. You all know what we're doing. We're multiplying 2 times 2 times 2 30 times, for the number being 2 to the 30th power. But what does that mean practically? Well, just rounding it off, under this other second scenario, the not quite so good one, after 30 days, the number of infected will be essentially 1 billion. 1 billion people, if it continued to grow at that rate. And if we had a fatality rate of 1%, the number of dead would now be 10 million, which I obviously cannot draw. Now, everyone can see that even though the difference between this and this might seem not so extreme, the difference between this and this is unthinkably horrible. And so even though it may seem like a pain, even though you may have to be at home, not be able to go to work, it's very, very, very important to take these measures seriously. Now, we've cut a lot of corners here, and the math could be adjusted in various ways, but the basic story is exactly this. That's the mathematics of it, and there's one more point about it, which really cannot be overemphasized. If we do a good job, if we manage to undertake all of this disruption and all of this pain and go from here to here, which means we go from here to here. At the end of the day, people may look at this and say, look, it wasn't so bad. Yes, some people got sick. Yes, a few people died. And they'll compare it to car accidents, or they'll compare it to regular flu. And what really needs to be avoided is taking that attitude. If we come out of this without a disaster, you can't infer that we overreacted. And people have been saying this, that if we do a good job, it will look like we overreact, because the results won't be so bad. But what you can't see when you look out into the world is all the people who would have died and all the people who would have been infected. We don't know exactly who they are. There's no way we can know. But the mathematics tells us what it would have been like. So that's a tiny bit of the mathematics, the differences that seem small, that add up very quickly. This is just 30 days to huge differences because of the way the virus will spread. So having nothing going on at the university, I thought I would come in and record a little lecture and get this information out, try to do it in a reasonable way. I'm going to share this with at least 2 people. And if they share it with 2 people, and you can either share the video, that's why they're called viral videos, or explain it yourself, because it's very simple. If all of those 2 people explained it to 2 people, and they explained it to 2 people, very soon, billions of people would understand. So I hope this might be a little bit of use, something to reflect on while you're going through the difficulties of this particular period.